Welcome back, everybody, again to another episode of the MNCAA podcast, Gophers edition. Nate Wells here, along with Drew Cove. I am not in the state of Minnesota. We're both on Eastern time this time. A little bit of podcasting from vacation, so it should be a fun time to talk Gophers Bemidji. I know I'm in the sun, but certainly the Gophers did not get that going up to Bemidji on Saturday, and they didn't feel any warmth whatsoever, especially in that second game. Nate, kind of into the results, a 5-3 win on Thursday night at Mariucci, 3-1 loss on Saturday at the Sanford Center in Bemidji. Let's just start with Thursday, Nate. Obviously a split, but good goal scoring and kind of fighting back against a team that played very well defensively.
It certainly was, yeah. On Thursday night in a home and home 2 games in 3 days series that at times felt like a little bit split off, but kind of a tale of the home team getting off to some really quick starts both nights. And you're seeing the road team able to try to come back in both of them. And in each game, the home team was able to hold off the attempt. And for me, it just really looked like kind of where the end of Thursday's game seemed to be a precursor to Saturday's game, where Minnesota completely dominated the opening of Thursday's game, which you sort of expected in a way. And if they're able to get out to a lead and be able to put Bemidji on their heels, that they're going to be in a great position, as opposed to on Saturday where you give up 2 goals in the first 8-9 minutes and trying to come back against a Bemidji team that is very good at holding on to leads, and showed why, for as strong as the Gophers have looked going against coming back in recent weeks, at a certain point, it's tough to rely on that every time. Not every time it's going to come through. And going against the Tom Sartori team is pretty much Bemidji did it up and got the win on Saturday.
Exactly. Yeah. Friday, a couple of quick goals by the Gophers early on. And it was really interesting to see that, the Gophers were able to get it and hold on, even though they kept fighting back. They made it a 1-goal deficit, I think 3 separate times with their goals, but the Gophers always stayed a step ahead, kind of padding that lead once again. But early on, especially Jimmy Snuggerud, I think looked really good this weekend, especially on Friday. But Brody Zemer, he's finding a way to capitalize and to be really good, especially in that Friday game, and that goal looked pretty great.
Certainly was, yeah. And Jimmy, again, Friday Night Jimmy has certainly been a thing for this past month, where he is scoring goals. He's showing why he is looking like he could be in the NHL come, hopefully, for Minnesota fans, April. And he's doing a lot of little things that maybe has been slightly missing from his game, or just being able to improve upon from last season to this season, just kind of having that consistency. Even in Saturday's game, where I think he put up something like 10 or 11 shots, and it felt like the first period, even when Minnesota was down, it's just every opportunity he was on the ice that he was creating chances either for himself or his line mates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it certainly on the other side of that coin too. It just the attack that Bemidji ended up having. I think Friday was they obviously were able to get some of their goals and to stay in the game, but I do think Nathan Airy really was up to the task, and kind of and both goalies too. I think just Bemidji does such a good job of screening and getting in the way and kind of making things look a little more complicated than they should. And I think it really turned out well for them in occasion, especially Saturday's game. But for Thursday's game, it didn't matter, obviously, if the Gophers can score 5 and Airy lets in a few, but not the result they wanted Saturday with the same kind of tactics. But Nate, let's just kind of dive into Saturday too. It's just because we've kind of seen what the Gophers can do well on offense, and when they can do the creative things that they were able to do on Thursday, but were really stifled on Saturday, and it looked just disjointed, I think was the word that came to my mind right away with Saturday's game. And obviously they were down in a 2-0 hole by the 10-minute mark of the first period. So just on how do the Gophers go against that? How do they find a way to not see that start against a team like Bemidji and prevent those couple first goals from coming in and kind of not looking as disjointed as they did early on?
Yeah, that's the tough challenge for when you play a team like Bemidji, where And there's certainly a few others in the Big Ten, and there's a few others who do it even better nationally, where you're looking at tournament time that playing that from a deficit is extremely difficult. And for the Gophers, where like if your stream was buffering, you missed the goal by the time the game started. It was opening shift really quick, and just to be down 1-0 is certainly a little bit of a challenge, especially that quick, where just you're kind of all of a sudden you're ready to go and you're trailing, but to get down 2-0 that quick, to get down 2-0 and be able to put in that hole. And I mean, credit to Bemidji, because MSHSL is just, he's one of the best goalies in the CCHA last season. Bemidji really kind of struggled when he was out. They lost one of their big leaders in Kyle Loof last year in D. Eric Polkamp went down to Denver, and they're still historically that same reputation of Bemidji. Just Tom Serratori, he brings in these big guys. He makes it just really difficult to play. Just clog his lanes, makes you pay for trying to create skilled chances. And it took Minnesota, especially once they were behind 2-0, it took them a while to kind of catch up and kind of get going and be put on those back foot. I started just to look at some of those turnovers and I stopped counting because they kept happening.
Yeah, and it wasn't a good showing, I guess, in the defensive zone at all, and especially just even in the neutral zone, just like passes not connecting and just kind of not being on the same page. It's like you can really tell when the Gophers are all on the same page together, and kind of those effortless passes look really effortless, and they certainly didn't in that Saturday game. And I think, and especially for Liam Soulier, kind of giving up 3, and obviously it looks a little better for Airy because he gets the W next to his name, but I don't think Soulier had much of a shot on a lot of those. I mean, there was 3-4 chances and then a turnover and then 3 bodies in front and then a goal. It's like there's not much you can do there, and it's tough to see a guy that certainly is looking to really get his footing, to let in a couple, like, not squeakers, a couple goals that just, like, you know what, it's like it's hard to fault that to you, buddy. Like, it's really difficult to say, okay, Soulier looked really bad on those, and like he didn't. So I think that was a good sign from a team that was making it really difficult on them to score. But I know, Nate, we kind of saw this from Penn State recently. We're going to see it again. We're going to talk about it a little later, but we're going to see it again this coming weekend. Just they were able to beat Penn State with the same type of attack. They maybe don't have the same personnel that can execute it as well as Bemidji did, I think. But what do you think? Well, what's the key to the Gophers beating Penn State like that, and also falling to Bemidji for one, and also for the future, I guess, going to Notre Dame and sticking it to them and not reaching the same fate as a split against a 5-7 team?
The positive for Minnesota is that it feels that this team is comfortable playing in those low-scoring games and mucking it up and really working hard to get those ugly chances and playing against a physical defensive first style team. The negative of that is, and this might be something I was kind of wondering and thinking about as the game's going on, is just how much of injuries and how much being banged up and continuing to play in games where Minnesota needs to find a way to come back to win, where you saw that pretty much both of the St. Thomas games where they're able to go and turn around. We saw Penn State, those nice close games. We saw Wisconsin or Minnesota needed to come back and turn around. And it's a certain point when you keep going, you're comfortable playing from behind, and the Gophers certainly are able to show the resiliency to be comfortable being behind 1-0 or 2-0 and coming back. But at a certain point, it will catch up to you. But I do want, and I kind of feel that same way with injuries, where you're looking, okay, we were talking much about Eric Paulson just looking like he kind of had a weekend that he really will not want to forget against Wisconsin. And then turns out he gets injured. He's out for a few weeks. You have August Falloon has been out. You have a couple other players who are playing through injuries and banged up. I mean, Nick Michael, I just said Nate. Nick, I did not play. Nick Michael played in this, and I think this is like the first meaningful games that he played in as a Gopher. Like, that's how far down there on the depth chart. And I don't know about like you've been a writer. I've been a writer. How great was it kind of to see him get that assist on Thursday? Because part of me is just like, oh, I kind of want to write about this. These are the stories that I love about college hockey.
Exactly. That's the thing, the kind of thing you want to see, especially with a guy who's kind of forced into action, where it's like the Gophers have so much depth that if they're not injured, I mean, it's a difficult scenario in which you're going to play. And it's like, when we've seen guys signed halfway through the season, or not signed, but like kind of show up on the roster halfway through the season, or it's all of a sudden a new goalie kind of pops onto the scene, and you say, oh, are they going to get any playing time? Are they just kind of the third or fourth body to just take some shots, or to go just be on line reps? Who knows? But it's like, it's good to see a guy like that make an impact. I mean, the Justin Close effect. It's cool to see a guy who just played the third period of the USA UNTDP game actually be a great player, and to come in and just with a lot of people being very skeptical. Obviously, like, I think I sometimes forget it too. It's like, it was really worrisome when Justin Close had to come in, because it's like, we hadn't seen what this guy could do. It's like coming in the season with Harry. It's like, we've seen him play like a meaningful game in his college career, and we don't know what to expect. And he blew it out of the park. And it's fun to see a guy take those chances and to really make it worthwhile, especially in a win too. But Nate, let's put a bow on this series. A split. It is Minnesota's second loss, so it's not the end of the world. And I know we've been kind of flipped. Sometimes depending on the weekend, we focus more on certain things, and obviously we've focused on a lot of sweeps and a lot of victories in the last few weeks. So I think it makes sense to focus on what went wrong in the losses, to kind of pinpoint, all right, what are they going to do better, or what can they do to really make that change later on in the season when it really counts. But a split this weekend against Bemidji. I think the goalies looked good. Obviously, you mentioned the injuries are certainly playing a role. But to kind of, and you mentioned it too, I think that's the one thing. Matthias Scholl just goaling them, and goaling plus a Bemidjiing. That's a weird word to say, but it seems like both of those things happened on Saturday, and there's not much really you can do about that. And the Gophers had a very high winning percentage so far. So it's hard to fault them to say, okay, you're going to lose one to a team that's not ranked every once in a while. And it's not like Bemidji's in the Stonehill territory for sure whatsoever. Bemidji's a very tough out. They've received votes a lot recently, and they're not a bad team to lose against. So just generally, what are your thoughts on the weekend, and anything that the Gophers can take forward to kind of elevate their game against Notre Dame?
I think we saw a lot of things to take away that were positive for the weekend, where you're continuing the consistency of Jimmy Snuggerud. Both Brody's, Lamb, and Zemer are continuing to just reach new levels. You're getting the depth. You're seeing, I think Ryan Chesley is kind of hitting another level as well. And just you're continuing to, hopefully that this is something that will be building on. Both losses for Minnesota, there's certainly a common theme of the Gophers outshot. They had a lot of shots blocked. They contained possessions, but they went up against a goalie who eventually just, they had their number. They're not able to work and find the way. I guess I'll throw this out to you. Do you think there is a blueprint to beating Minnesota, or is this just the way that the cookie crumbles with college hockey these days?
I mean, I think it is more of the latter for you. It is tough when a team comes in and just goalies you and plays really tough in front of you, and you have to play from behind. That obviously makes it more difficult. So if you can score on Minnesota early, do it. And it just hasn't worked for a lot of teams this year. But I think the one thing too, it's not, maybe if it's not shot quality, but because like the Gophers had 39 shots in Saturday's game, same amount they had on Thursday. They had 19 of them blocked. So it's just, if your team is willing to really sell out and get in the way and just be really pesky, that is, that's the best formula that I can give out. I mean, if you can just get your way, just be big and get in the way of shots and skating, and not, obviously there's a fine line between a penalty and not, but you just have to get in the way. Like, just throw the Gophers off, and make sure that they can't have that north-south speed, because even the defensemen are so good at that. Like this, I mean, they're really good at playing defense, but they're also very skilled offensive players. So it's hard to underestimate anybody on this Gophers roster. And it's just, it is a tough thing to do. And I think, some team is going to figure it out one night. Bemidji obviously didn't do it 2 nights in a row. Otherwise, I think it'd be a little bit more replicable, because I mean they did the same things, but it worked one night, it didn't work the other night. So it is just a kind of a crapshoot, I think, sometimes when it comes to that, and you're going to find your way in front of a certain amount of shots, and sometimes you're just not going to be able to get into those lanes. And obviously the shooters have talent too to be looking for where those lanes are, and there's a reason they can go bar down, because it works. So it is a tough formula to replicate, because it's just like, all right, be hockey players. That's basically what I'm saying. So obviously we certainly thought this series could have been, I certainly thought the series could have been a sweep, but obviously with Bemidji's style, it would have been tough. And it turns out that they got a taste of a team really that they could face in the first round of the national tournament somewhere down the line. Not to get ahead of ourselves at all here, but that is the type
things
of team
we always do. Things we always do in this podcast. Not to get ahead of ourselves at all, but we'll talk about the tournament.
Let's get ahead of ourselves.
Only the third time I think we mentioned the tournament or April between us.
Hey, it's all a lot of. I mean, I think Gophers fans, that's a lot of what they care about. They just they say, you know what, the regular season is all right. Get back to me when March starts. So Gophers are 10-2. They're just fine. I think they still, the team, we didn't learn anything about the team that's absolutely catastrophic. So definitely not what you want to see on a weekend for a split. But 2 losses is nothing to panic about.
No, I would say this is a weekend where I think about the last 3 or 4 where we would not have been surprised if one of the teams took a game in the style that this is playing. The Gophers, for the most part, and granted, I'm not going to say the P word. I'm not going to get ahead of myself there. But they've been winning the games against the teams that they should be winning. That said, they are certainly playing a weaker slate, and they don't have the wiggle room that past Gopher teams would have had. I looked up this morning because I was kind of curious. Air Force is the only team they've played that has a winning record right now. Omaha is someone like Omaha has really struggled. Omaha's almost 3-7 right now. Wisconsin's a little down. Penn State's a little is down. But so pretty much everyone else who kind of played is a little bit more. They're closer to 500, but they're all on the wrong side of 500 right now. So. It's not the strongest schedule. It will certainly pick up in a couple of weeks when Michigan State come back to back to Mariucci. But right now, you're 10 of 12. They're winning the games that they should. They're in a conference that is winning non-conference games, which will certainly help. But so that's pretty much they have. There's reasons to be happy. There's reasons to look and see that there's certainly more to grow. But I would say if you ask me if Minnesota would be 10-2 and where they were at this point in the season, the beginning of it, I would say that things are going well for the Gophers.
Yeah, and that's I think that's a good segue kind of into around the conference here, taking a look at what the rest of the Big Ten is up to this past weekend. Nate, let's start out. Wisconsin beat Penn State in overtime, 5-4 on Friday, and then won 6-3 on Saturday. The Badgers sweeping the Nittany Lions. I mean, I saw that and I said, did they just triple their season goal total in one weekend? I know you posed this question to me, but did either of us see this coming after the last weekend? I certainly didn't think so.
I saw them finding a way to win because they kept being so close for the last few weeks, and I was not surprised to get the win in overtime. I was more surprised that they scored 5 goals, get above. Because I'm almost certain they had not scored more than 3 goals in a game.
I think it was all
this
season,
weekend. Yeah. So, but they're doing it in a way where they're having the shots and just. You're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop where, okay, maybe they'll get a win. They'll get a couple of those goals to go in. I did not see the road sweep on that end. They were 4-0 on Saturday, and doing that in Pagula is not an easy task to do. And I'm not surprised in a way after how Wisconsin played with Minnesota close last weekend. But it still is a little bit. I had to do a little bit of a double take for the Badgers.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird score to see. I didn't pen them, especially against this really good defensive team in Penn State. I didn't see them making that, giving up that many goals in a weekend. So it's very, very interesting to see. But kind of moving on here to Michigan State sweeping I guess the upcoming match against the Gophers here. Michigan State sweeping Notre Dame 8-3 Friday night, 4-3 on Saturday. Not a good result for the Fighting Jeff Jacksons this weekend. The farewell tour, certainly off to a bumpy start. I believe a 5-7 record, but yeah, Nate, I mean, is that just Michigan State being Michigan State, or is it a little bit of both here where Notre Dame faltering a little bit, Michigan State really taking it to them?
I mean, Michigan State is certainly showing that they deserve to be in that upper tier of the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
But 8 goals on the Fighting Irish, that just stands out. It is not easy to do. And Notre Dame, I'm not shocked to see that the second game that Saturday was a little closer. Notre Dame feels like their season's a little bit inconsistent, where they have one great performance on one of the nights and just are not able to put something together for about 20 to 40 minutes, and it kind of cost them in the second game. So I'm not surprised to see. I'm not surprised that this is the weekend that it went out that way. I'm more just shocked the way that the Spartans, again, these are games that I would expect. I don't know if I'd even expect 11 goals between Michigan State and Notre Dame, even as well as the Spartans are playing, let alone having in 2 games, let alone seeing that be a score in 1.
Yeah, it's wild. It's everything's being thrown on its head in this conference seemingly this year. But one thing that didn't get thrown on its head this weekend, Ohio State did what they should have done, and they swept Lindenwood.
Yes, see Wisconsin. This is how you do it. The Buckeyes continue to beat the teams that they should be beating.
Mm-hmm.
They still came back after that getting swept by Michigan State, which, again, if you look at that Notre Dame series, doesn't seem to be that bad of a result, but also kind of shows where the Buckeyes are right now in the Big Ten pecking order. But, I mean, 2 non-conference wins, hey, that's more than Minnesota can say. Michigan didn't play at all, so they didn't get any. That's more than Michigan can say. I'm just going to basically say Ohio State, like, just while dragging like half the Big Ten at this point. Penn State, you didn't play Lindenwood this season. So come on, what's going on there?
Yeah, it's the beat Lindenwood series, and you know what? Ohio State, I think, is the champion of that season. So, Nate, that kind of moves us to our last segment here. Just this coming weekend, Notre Dame at Compton Family Ice Arena. I mean, after seeing what Michigan State did this past weekend, it's hard not to expect something different. I think the Gophers are certainly capable of doing what Michigan State did. It probably won't look exactly the same. 8 goals is a tough task regardless of the opponent. But what do you expect this weekend? I mean, I expect a pretty diligent Gophers effort this coming weekend. And it's going to be tough to see kind of the setbacks that Notre Dame has had this year kind of factoring in.
This should be a fun series, both because Minnesota is facing a similar style to what they played this past weekend and have an opportunity to make adjustments and do so against a team that has a slightly higher talent pool. And also they're going against a team they're returning to a place that probably gave them their worst loss of last season. Remember that Friday game was that game against the Notre Dame where Erie got in for the first because Justin Close actually got chased.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we've seen for the Gophers when things can go from bad to worse really quickly there.
Yeah.
And they're not going to forget that quickly. So I'm curious to really just see how Minnesota bounces back from just a game and a style of play that they've been going against. And it's good, especially just getting into some back into some Big Ten play as we get near the end of the first half, where it's still, I don't know if I'm trying to think if Notre Dame is still might be the best team that the Gophers have played, which is a really tough thing to say because the Gophers, because I don't know where you'd put Notre Dame in between Wisconsin and Penn State. They're all kind of a similar record.
Mm-hmm.
They've all had some high points. They've all had some struggles. I think you can make an argument that Notre Dame is the best team that the Gophers have played this season.
I certainly think that that's close to the case, and and just a non-conference season that's been marred with the futility of the opponents, I guess, is the not certainly not something the Gophers are really used to, and they're going to have to make it up, I think, in that conference play and all the difficult teams that they're going to face there, the Michigan States and Michigans. They're going to have to really do their best to keep pace with them and to make sure that they have a good ranking, good. Not going to say it, but you guys all know what we're talking about. But it's all important that that they do it against even the teams that aren't necessarily in the rankings or anything super high up. But you still have to beat Notre Dame. That's just the one thing you're going to have to do. Obviously, the Gophers don't make this Gophers team doesn't make the schedule. Obviously, the coaches have a very big influence on it years in advance, but it's you just got to play out the schedule and see what happens. So, and the Gophers will do that this weekend against Notre Dame, Fighting Irish from South Bend, which will be, that means that the game is on Peacock, both of them. Not this is the one kind of outlier game where it's not like Fox 9 Plus or Fox 9 or Big 10 Plus or whatnot. So if you already have Peacock, great. I don't know. I'm not going to make any endorsements if you want to sign up for it.
I was going to say, go see if there's a Black Friday deal.
Yeah, true.
Because that's that time of year. You might be able to get one, and hey, there's can throw in a few other things. But also, again, home team has the rights as an affiliate member of the Big Ten. Notre Dame does not throw in their rights with the rest of the Big Ten. But I mean, also, if you ever been to South Bend, it's an interesting town. The rink is really kind of cool. It's different. It's different than either Amsoil or Pagula, which were both built around the same time. It feels like kind of like an old school cathedral and really fits in well with the rest of the Notre Dame's campus. So there's a bar upstairs, which also feels very well in there. I want to see how St. Thomas's rink comes out there, because I feel like they're going for that same style, and it would also be very fitting for the Tommies.
Yeah, I'm excited to see all those, and get out. I got to get out to South Bend one of these days too. Certainly not this weekend, but maybe next year. It'll be the time I make it. So,
I did it, and it was the year that Cal Morris won the Richter. So I think it was like I drove out like 8 hours for like 3 goals or something like ridiculous. I know, like it was like Minnesota. I know Minnesota lost the 1-0 game in that one, and it was just like Lucia was just like, hey, these things they happen. It's all you gotta do is tip your hat, and that's all you can do.
Yep. Sometimes the other goalie just has it, right? And, Gophers saw that this weekend. Gophers fans are certainly going to hope that they don't see it this weekend against Notre Dame. Nate, I think that does it for us. But until next week, everybody, we'll see you at the rink.